So it's here where Malachi first starts mentioning significant elements involving geography. So this is a good place for us to pause for a moment and give a little bit of geographical context for what's happening in the rest of the Book of Mormon to help us make sense of this.
So the small section of the Book of Mormon, Enosh, Jerem, Omni, Words of Mormon, which can be passed over, are very, very crucial for understanding. And what we want to share with you today are some free resources that are available, maps and geographical resources to help you make visual sense of what is happening in the Book of Mormon. Now, to make it totally clear, Jesus saves. Geography was not revealed to save anybody. And we try to be neutral, and what we've built are some resources based on the internal references in the Book of Mormon. We didn't go out anywhere on earth and find, I wonder where this would actually match somewhere in the Americas. Even though it's an interesting question, we just stuck with the internal geographical consistencies that are going on in the Book of Mormon. And actually, a lot of this was Tyler. He has really paid the price. And we're on what version of this map?
This is version 42.
So we make this as a supplemental, useful resource. And as we get further into the Book of Mormon, we'll be using this to kind of just show the relational connection of what's going on in the Book of Mormon. But before we get into modeling that, we want to spend just a minute talking about something that the Brethren, an official essay they put out on Book of Mormon geography.
So if you look up Gospel Topics essays, and so Gospel Topics, Book of Mormon geography, you'll be able to pull up this essay from the church. We want to read just a couple of the paragraphs, the last 3 paragraphs, because this really encapsulates the sentiment here. The church does not take a position on the specific geographic locations of Book of Mormon events in the ancient Americas. President M. Russell Ballard, acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, reminded members that, quote, "The Book of Mormon is not a textbook on topography. Speculation on the geography of the Book of Mormon may mislead instead of enlighten. Such a study can be a distraction from its divine purpose. Individuals may have their own opinions regarding Book of Mormon geography and other such matters about which the Lord has not spoken. However, the First Presidency and Quorum of the 12 Apostles urge leaders and members not to advocate those personal theories in any setting or manner that would imply either prophetic or church support for those theories. All parties should strive to avoid contention on these matters." It's fascinating because some people are so excited about different specific geographic models that every time they open the Book of Mormon, that's what they're looking for as proof for their particular model. When the leaders of the church are saying, let's not have it be about the geography and let's not fight. Let's not have contention about where the book took place. And the final paragraph is, speaking of the book's history and geography, President Russell M. Nelson taught, "Interesting as these matters may be, study of the Book of Mormon is most rewarding when one focuses on its primary purpose, to testify of Jesus Christ. By comparison, all other issues are incidental."
Again, we share that as this is a supplemental resource. We're not trying to advocate anything. As instructors, we're trying to provide structure for the learning experience. And we hope that you find this useful. And we're going to spend a few minutes talking about how the geography in the Book of Mormon, if you understand a bit of it, can help lessen confusion.
So let me give you the context for why we've even done this. At BYU, we have to stay in our products that we're producing like this, we have to stay geography neutral. So though this looks like a beautiful map that actually this place would exist somewhere on the world, it's a made-up map. Here's what happens. There are over 550 specific references to geographical names and places and things in the Book of Mormon. Often, students, so I teach a lot of students every semester, and every time you come to a description of geography, often what happens is the students just zone that out. They think it's unimportant, they just skip over it and move on. When in reality, if you can go into the book and make sense relationally of these different geographical features and locations, all of a sudden certain truths, certain teachings, certain doctrines, symbols that point us to Christ can start to become more clear. So it's not that geography is completely unimportant. If that were the case, Mormon and the other writers would have put nothing of geography in here, but they did. The problem is when you take these little elements and elevate them to the most important thing. We don't want to do that. So it's intended that you would take this internal map and have to pull it and stretch it here, squeeze it here, compress it here, twist it there to fit whatever geographical model you prefer. And that's totally fine. Our intent is not to push a pin in the map. Our intent is to say that Moroni is south of Lehi and Nephi near the narrow strip of wilderness, because that's what the book says, so that students, as they're reading this book, can make better sense of the places that they're reading about. Now let me just show you. Just a really, really quick overlay of the whole land as it is described in the Book of Mormon. You have the land southward and you have the land northward. Land northward is often referred to as the land of desolation. Huge civilization up there with the Jaredites. And most of the Book of Mormon story isn't covered up here until you get to the Book of Ether. Most of our storyline is here in the land of Zarahemla, which is north of the narrow strip of wilderness that runs from the sea west to the sea east, and between that and desolation and the narrow neck of land, as he describes it. South of that is the land of Nephi. So what happens is Lehi lands at the land of the first inheritance, on the west of the land of Nephi. In 2 Nephi 5, we get the split, where Nephi leaves, takes those who will follow him. They travel many days' journey into the wilderness until they discover a land that they call Nephi. And they build a city and call it Nephi. You'll notice we've tried to build it up so that it looks higher, because every time you go to Nephi, you go up in the Book of Mormon. Even though it's in the south, you always go up to Nephi and down to Zarahemla. They're not looking at a satellite view of their land. They're boots on the ground. So they're looking at elevations. So apparently, Nephi is high ground, Zarahemla is low ground. So that's just one way to keep this straight. The Nephites live here for almost, not quite, 400 years, but the Lamanites keep fighting them until the Lord tells King Mosiah I, King Benjamin's father, take all of these people that will follow you and leave. Depart out of this land. Get out of Nephi. So they go north, and they travel northward, and they discover a whole new civilization. This is roughly a 3-week journey between Nephi and Zarahemla. They've been living about 3-week journey apart from each other for nearly 400 years, and they didn't know that each other existed. They discover the Mulekites, and they're kind of surprised to find out that the Mulekites left Jerusalem right before the Babylonian conquest in 587, 586 as well, similar time frame to Lehi's. They combine resources, they combine their peoples together, and King Mosiah becomes the collective king over the whole group. The Book of Mormon timeline becomes easier to understand when you have these geographical references kind of in your mind, and you can fit them to whatever model you prefer. But this is just an example of how, if you have some resources, just for comparisons of rough distances, it will enhance your study of the book and allow you to focus more on the doctrine, so you're not so confused. You can focus more on Christ and understand what he's doing with very real people in a very real world setting. You can find this map and other resources at virtualscriptures.org. It's all free. And again, we're not trying to set this up as the ultimate standard. This is just a resource to help you hopefully be able to connect a few more dots and make a little more sense of your scripture reading. Once again, virtualscriptures.org.